Here in Blender 4.1, I want to experiment with rigid body physics, which are a type of real-world physics that we can simulate in Blender. And this can make animations a lot more interesting, and just to experiment with it, I'm going to move this cube up here, and I kind of want to make a ball catching it, kind of like fruit, but it's a cube. So using Shift A, we're going to get a UV sphere in here, and we're going to scale it up, like so. Then I'm going to go in the side view here, press Z to go into wireframe. We're going to go into edit mode, and I'm just going to select the top half vertices here, press delete, delete the vertices, and then come back out here. So going back into object mode and turning back on solid view, I'm going to add the rigid body physics modifier to our body. So it's not here, but if I click collision and I go into the settings here, you can add the rigid body. We're also going to add it to the cube here. And so we also want to set the ball to passive rather than active, because if we just leave it like it is now, it's going to fall as so. But if we turn on passive on the ball here, you can see that it doesn't fall, and the cube has actually fallen on the top here, and that's because of the shape of the collision barrier. Currently it's a convex hull, which means it goes around the whole outside of the shape, but we actually want to change this so it's mesh, so it'll go on the inside now. Now when we set the animation back, you can see that we catch it in the hole. So to make it more fun, we can change these settings here. So we're gonna make it drop from the side, and we're also gonna go into the settings of the cube and change the response. So see here we can add some bounciness. So if we just turn that up to 1, we can see what happens, and you can see that now it bounces around. And if we turn the bounciness back down, just so we see that it had an effect, it did add some sort of bounce. We can also change the friction, and so if we turn the friction down, that produces much more of a slide on the inside of the ball, like so. So I'm actually gonna put the friction back up to 0.5. You can also look at the sensitivity, the dynamics. So this would affect the speed loss over time, and the rotation here would decrease how much the cube rotates after bouncing. So we could just leave that as is. We could also add more cubes just for fun. So if we copy and paste here, so a bunch of cubes, and then we play, since they all have the same modifier, you can see they interact with each other. So to do something more interesting, we can also use this in animation. So to do this, first I'm going to create a plane, scale it up, and I'm going to create some cubes just at the top here, and move it down a bit. And I'm going to apply the rigid body on passive here, and we're actually going to select animated, well, not for the plane, but for the cubes. Rigid body, animated, we're going to leave it as active. I will add a bounciness of 0.5. And we're going to make a little tower here. So we'll just quickly make a tower like so. just copy and pasting the shapes. And I'll increase the size of the plane a bit, and we'll just press play quickly to see the tower stays together. Okay, so we're actually gonna turn off the animated here, as these cubes won't be animated directly, but so I'm gonna animate a ball crashing into the tower, and that's the only one that needs the animated feature here, so we'll just turn them off. Like so. Now if I press play, missed this one, they're all stacked perfectly. Perfect. Okay, so now if we get a UV sphere in here and we just move it to the side here, we're gonna give it the rigid body feature. We're gonna set it to animated. We don't need to change any of the other settings, but we're gonna go into the animation tab here, and I'm gonna change the camera angle using Control Alt and 0 on the number pad. That should work. Oh, there's no camera. Okay. So we'll go back into the layout, Shift A, camera, just move it up here, and we'll now do Alt 0. So we'll set this keyframe to all channels by pressing I, and now when you just press play, we have this shot. So now what we want to do is we're going to select the sphere, set the initial keyframe at 1 here with the cube selected with I. Then we're going to go to 20, and we're going to move this sphere into frame here. Press I again, go to 40, move it some more, and then right through, right out of frame here. So what we should see happen is we should see the sphere crash into the cube of blocks, and there we go. So we can actually also change the camera angle just a little bit, just for nuance. And we can put it in frame here. Then we can get a better angle of the explosion, or the collision rather, as it falls. So now if we play it, we have this block breaking animation. So we're actually going to scale the cube, not the cube, the sphere, just so it collides more, and we actually need to change that on each keyframe here. So we'll set the scale to 10's way too much. 2, we'll just make it bigger. And both. Quickly press I to set the new keyframe. Same with the other keyframes here. And this final one. Just because I want it to hit all the blocks. So now if we play it, it seems that it didn't set on this one, so we'll quickly change it back. And I'll press I. It didn't set on this keyframe either. There we go. So now when we play it, it hits all the cubes, creating that lovely effect. And we can actually move the sphere out of frame, because now that it's a bit bigger, it is actually visible. So we'll just go ahead and do that. Press I. And now we have this lovely animation. And that's how rigid body physics work. They don't allow for the bending or actual, so with the soft body physics it will deform the actual shape of the model, but with rigid body physics it just affects the collisions and displaces it by that collision.